The Whiskey Trail of Vengeance, The Conclusion, by Reuben White. Reckoning at the canyon's edge. The words hung heavy in the air, slicing through the tension like a blade through silk. Jack's heart skipped a beat as he turned to face the source of the voice, his eyes narrowing in disbelief. Standing before him, bathed in the dim light filtering through the cracks in the walls, was a figure from Jack's past, a figure he had thought long gone, swallowed by the darkness of the wilderness. Jackson. The name escaped Jack's lips in a whisper, disbelief coloring his voice. The man known as Jackson stepped forward, his gaze steady and unwavering. "I reckon you thought you'd seen the last of me, Jack," he said, his voice a low rumble like distant thunder. Jack's mind raced, memories flashing before his eyes like scenes from a long-forgotten nightmare. Jackson had been a member of their gang, a gunslinger with a reputation as deadly as his own. But when the Shadow Riders had come calling, Jackson had chosen a path of darkness, betraying everything they had once stood for. Now, as Jack faced his former friend turned foe, he knew that their reckoning was at hand. The air crackled with electricity, the weight of years of betrayal and vengeance hanging heavy between them. Without a word, Jack raised his revolver, the metal cold against his palm. Jackson mirrored his movement, his gun glinting in the dim light like a predator's eye. And then, with a thunderous roar, the canyon erupted into chaos. Gunshots rang out like cracks of lightning, echoing off the walls with deafening force. Bullets whizzed past Jack's head, kicking up plumes of dust as they struck the earth with deadly precision. Jack dove for cover behind a crumbling wooden crate, his heart pounding in his chest like a war drum. The smell of gunpowder hung heavy in the air, mingling with the metallic tang of blood and sweat. As the gunfire raged on, Jack's mind raced, searching for a way out of the deadly trap he found himself in. He knew that he couldn't take on Jackson and the Shadow Riders alone, not without a plan, not without backup. With a glance around the room, Jack spotted a door at the far end of the hideout, barely visible through the haze of smoke and dust. It was his only chance, a slim hope in the face of overwhelming odds. Gritting his teeth against the pain of his wounds, Jack made a run for the door, his boots pounding against the wooden floor like the beat of a desperate man's heart. Bullets whizzed past him, grazing his shoulder and tearing through his coat with a sickening rip. But Jack didn't stop. He couldn't stop, not now, not when freedom was within his reach. With a final burst of energy, Jack reached the door, throwing it open with a force that sent splinters flying. Beyond lay the promise of escape, the chance to outrun the darkness that threatened to consume him. And so, with one last glance back at the chaos behind him, Jack stepped out into the blinding light of day, leaving behind the shadows of the past and riding headlong into the unknown. For in the wild and untamed frontier of the West, anything could happen. And as long as Jack drew breath, the whiskey trail of vengeance would continue, blazing a path of retribution through the heart of darkness. The end was nowhere in sight, but Jack knew one thing for certain: he would ride on, until justice was served or until he drew his final breath. For he was a gunslinger, a hero of the wild frontier, and nothing could stand in his way. As Jack stepped out into the blinding light of day, the sounds of gunfire and chaos faded into the distance behind him, swallowed by the vast expanse of the wilderness. He breathed a sigh of relief, the weight of the world lifting from his shoulders as he rode deeper into the unknown. The sun hung high in the sky, casting its golden rays upon the rugged landscape as Jack pressed on, his mind racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. Though he had escaped the clutches of the Shadow Riders for now, he knew that his journey was far from over. But as the miles stretched out before him, Jack felt a sense of peace settle over him, a peace born of the knowledge that he was free, free to carve his path through the wild and untamed frontier of the West. And so, with the wind at his back and the sun on his face, Jack rode on, his heart filled with hope and determination. For though the whiskey trail of vengeance had been a long and perilous journey, it had forged him into a man of strength and courage, a man unafraid to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, Jack's legend grew, his name whispered in hushed tones around campfires and saloon tables alike. He became known as the gunslinger who had stared down the darkness and emerged victorious, a hero to those who sought justice in a lawless land. But for Jack, the true reward lay not in fame or glory, but in the knowledge that he had made a difference, that he had brought light to the darkest corners of the West and set the wheels of justice in motion once more. And so, as the sun dipped low on the horizon and the stars twinkled overhead like diamonds in the sky, Jack rode off into the sunset, his spirit unbroken and his resolve unwavering. For though the whiskey trail of vengeance may have come to an end, Jack's journey was far from over. And as long as there were wrongs to right and villains to vanquish, he would ride on, a lone gunslinger in search of justice in the wild and untamed frontier of the West. And thus concludes the tale of Jack, the gunslinger who dared to defy the darkness and emerge victorious on the whiskey trail of vengeance. But remember, dear reader, in the wild and unpredictable world of the West, there are always more tales to be told, and more adventures to be had. So, keep your eyes open and your guns at the ready, for you never know what dangers, or heroes, may be lurking just beyond the horizon. The end. If you are enjoying Adventures in the Wild West channel, feel free to hit the subscribe button for future posts. And we will have a yeehaw of a time.